A pet parrot seems out of place at a restaurant. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today it is Short Story Tuesday, so I want to talk about an interesting short story that I've stumbled across. And today's short story is all about parrots and whatnot, although it might be more allegorical than anything else. I am referring to History by Nadine Gordimer, which was published in 2007 in her short story collection, Beethoven Was 1/16 Black. For those who don't know, Nadine Gordimer was a Jewish South African writer who lived throughout the 1900s. She was known for writing books, short stories, things like that. But she primarily wrote about the apartheid system in South Africa. She was very much against it, which is pretty cool. And she was very close friends with Nelson Mandela, who they specifically talked, and she helped write some of his defense in his 1960 trial where he stood against apartheid. And then after he got released from jail in the 90s, she was one of the first to contact him. At least according to what other people have written about her. This is the first I've encountered her work or anything about her as the apartheid system. Like you would think someone notable and connected to Nelson Mandela would be celebrated, but I hadn't really heard of anything that she had written. And yeah, indeed, a lot of what she has written is about apartheid, about what life was like before and what life was like after it ended, which is important to write about as well. And she also wrote a couple things about the Middle East. It should be noted that despite being anti-apartheid, she was for Israel, and she said she didn't see any similarities between apartheid South Africa and what was going on in Israel and Palestine, which, as we've seen, that is very, very much similar. People are being killed in great numbers there, and people who are speaking out against it are being jailed. So that just goes to show you someone who can be on the right side of history in one case can later be on the wrong side of history in another. Which is it's just important to remember that just because you're right once doesn't mean you'll be right all the time. But without further ado, let's talk about history. I'll do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we'll move on from there. So history focuses on an old parrot that is brought to a restaurant. Some people have said it's over a century old, but we can't know that for sure. It chatters. It sometimes speaks French. Children go up to it and try to get it to talk, and it'll sometimes just screech at them and try to hide because it doesn't really like being around so many people. And it's also kind of out of its normal environment because it's from Africa or South America or something like that, so the parrot is dealing with a different climate than it normally would in this city, as well as different people around it. Eventually the restaurant gets bought. The people who own the restaurant have been to Paris or are French themselves, but the restaurant is bought by a German man, which feels somewhat relevant to the story. I can't quite place on why that is though. And then during the last week that the restaurant is open by these people, everyone is very interested in going to it and eating there for the last time. They're enjoying the food, but also they want to see the parrot before it's taken back to the couple's apartment. And then as the story comes to a close, we see the parrot begins speaking various French phrases. It begins saying "ça va, ça va, ça va" repetitively, which just means "how are you?" And then it says a couple of other phrases which suggest that it's not doing well, or it overheard another argument where people were not doing well. And that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there is a little bit worth talking about with history. One of the things that Gordimer seems to be touching upon is that of being out of place. The parrot clearly doesn't belong at the restaurant, isn't really happy around people, and they have to, treat the parrot specially in order to make it feel like it belongs or to prevent it from making a scene ever. And the climate doesn't match for the parrot, and there are strange people out and about poking and prodding at the parrot, and it causes the parrot to make a scene regularly, which is just part of the restaurant's aesthetic environment, things like that. But it's also impossible to know how the parrot truly feels, because it can be acting agitated, or it can just be staring at people, but you don't know if it's happy or if it's scared to be there, or if it truly wants to go back to its home place. We really only have like the weird things that it says, it squawks to go by, and none of these people are parrotologists or bird enthusiasts, so they're really just sort of placing meaning on the bird and hoping that can kind of help them. It is kind of interesting to see how Gordimer is talking about things being out of place, but at times the way that she's talking, it makes it feel like she's being allegorical, like it's not actually about the parrot. And the way that kind of stands out in particular is that she highlights that the restaurant owners are French or French adjacent, and that the restaurant is being bought by Germans. Is that saying something about European history? Is that saying something about the history of the world? I can't quite place my fingers on it, but it does feel like part of the story is allegorical, and I don't really understand what exactly Gordimer is trying to say about the parrot here. But it is interesting. It's just she's clearly touching upon something else that I can only basically grasp. If you have better ideas about what you think this is about, let me know in the comments below. There is another interesting element of the story in how the parrot is a keeper of secrets. The parrot contains a secret history that is only partially revealed in how it's talking. It just squawking from time to time, or it's saying various phrases that were taught to it throughout the years, and the people can only kind of glimpse into that secret history of whether it relates to the restaurant owners or someone who had the parrot before. It's telling you something about where it comes from, but it's impossible to know for sure without having all the pieces. Kind of like showing brief flashes of a puzzle, but only being able to see part of it, so you can't guess the entire bit of it, or the allegory of the elephant, or the riddle about the elephant, how the blind individuals feel parts of the elephant and see and think they know the answer, but they actually don't. That's kind of what the parrot is here. It does kind of reveal some insight into the human experience, because it's just periodically shouting "Papa, Papa, Papa," something about a dad, and it's saying "Ça va," which is like "How are you?" And then it has a reply that's like "Oh, I am not too good" in French. So clearly indicating, how we hurt each other, as the narrator says, or how we talk to one another and maybe obfuscate our feelings at times, or somebody. The parrot once knew somebody who was disturbed or distressed, and that person isn't around right now, or if they are around, we can't talk with them and understand what the parrot was saying, but it reveals the wide variety of emotions that human beings are capable of expressing through its repetition, through its maybe not its learned behavior, even if it isn't intentional behavior. Anyway, those are my thoughts on History by Nadine Gordimer. It's an interesting short story. I didn't really enjoy any of the short stories in this collection. I felt they were all too vague, and Gordimer was trying to do some fancy writing that never quite landed for me. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I do think it's not for me particularly. There might be some people out there who enjoy it, but I'm not going to recommend it to you, because it didn't really hit for me. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts. If you have anything to say, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that you can find out more about this author, so that other people can find out more, or even the short story collection or this specific short story if they're interested in that sort of thing. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and parrot-based travels. Farewell.